Hello, sir. Okay, sir.
Uh,
I will start the session here, sir.
sure.
So, good morning, Dr. Srihari, and good morning to the participants who are watching this live session. Welcome to the session on practice active learning and become a lifelong learner. In this session, we will explore the concept of active learning and discuss how it helps you become a lifelong learner. In today's fast-paced and ever-changing world, learning has become an essential skill for personal and professional growth. The traditional approach of passive learning, where information is simply presented to us, is no longer sufficient. Active learning, on the other hand, empowers individuals to take charge of their learning journey and engage with the material in a more meaningful and effective way. Throughout the session, we will encourage active participation and engagement from all attendees. Feel free to share your thoughts, ask questions, and contribute to these discussions. We believe that learning is a collaborative process, and by sharing our experiences and insights, we can enrich our own learning journeys. Before we start Dr. Srihari's session, I would like to give some short introduction about him. We are honored to have Dr. Srihari as our guest speaker for the session on practice active learning and become a lifelong learner. Dr. Srihari is an accomplished professional with a remarkable background in engineering, education, and professional organizations. Dr. Srihari holds the distinguished title of Fellow of the Institution of Electronics and Telecommunication Engineers India, member of the Indian Institute of Chemical Engineers, member of the Indian Society for Technical Education, fellow of the Energy Institute UK London, chartered engineer UK, chartered energy engineer UK, and fellow of the Institution of Engineers India. With such an impressive range of qualifications, Dr. Srihari brings a wealth of knowledge and expertise to our session. His extensive experience in the field of engineering and his active involvement in professional organizations have provided him with a unique perspective on active learning and lifelong learning. Throughout his career, Dr. Srihari has actively promoted the importance of continuous learning and has mentored numerous professionals and students. He has conducted workshops, seminars, and training programs on various topics related to engineering, energy, and education. His passion for learning and his commitment to sharing knowledge have made him a highly regarded figure in the academic and professional communities. At the end, I would like to introduce to the motto of Dr. Trigari, empowering minds, inspiring growth. I would like to hand over the session to Dr. Srihari and also thanks a lot joining us today and over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much for a hyper introduction. I must make my disclosures right away. All that has been told about me may not be true. I do have experience. Knowledge is something which time will tell. And it's not important. I would like to share my experiences and what I have concluded based on my experiences with all of you. I would like to share a very small anecdote that as a teacher, I was very proud of my teaching abilities, and I would take lectures. And normally in a course, you take about 40 lectures, 3 credit course, 42 lectures. And then you expect students to study and do well in the examinations. There was a time when I took, instead of 42 lectures, I took anywhere between 60 to 80 lectures, thinking that more lectures would really mean more knowledge to the students and so on and so forth. I was surprised that the final results did not make any difference whether I took 40 lectures or 60 lectures. And in fact, I also realized that what I was covering in 40 lectures, what is actually needed by the students can be in fact covered in only about 20 lectures possibly. uh, and the remaining 20 lectures time, give it to students to study, because what students studied remains with them. what they hear from you in the class, very few students actually can grasp the entire thing at that speed. And as a result, I have now become a disciple of learning rather than teaching. And I would like to share those experiences with my youngsters, as well as the current crop of teachers who possibly could make amends and not make all the mistakes I did in my career. I would like to share my slides, and let me share this. One second. Let me share this window. Kindly confirm that you can see the window.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Yeah. Uh, I think this should be better. The slideshow format would be better. Can you see the slides clearly?
Yeah, yes, sir. No
Yeah.
problem.
So I would like to share with my fellow learners something about active learning and become a lifelong learner. I think let's first clarify what is a lifelong learner. I think people of my generation will be able to very clearly tell you what lifelong learning has been, because we first learned how to operate a radio. Then we learned how to ride a bicycle, possibly. And then we graduated from a two wheeler to four wheeler and so on and so forth. Our life also changed because we had a life where television was non existent, forget about mobile phones. And we have seen so many transformations in our lifetime, and they're continuously coming one after another. And after every technological change, we have had to learn and relearn just to stay alive. Internet banking, for example, was unknown to us. Imagine what happens to our parents. For them, even a mobile phone is a technological challenge. But then they all learn from, luckily, from their grandchildren, uh, because they are more tech savvy than the current generation of adults, and they are adopting to pick up the most necessary essential things to stay connected with society and life. I think this is what I'm talking about in terms of lifelong learner. These are people who don't have to earn a living, possibly, but they still have to continue to live. What about those who need to earn a living? I think we have gone through, today's senior teachers are teaching courses which they never even thought would exist. They are studying materials which were not part of their curriculum, for example. And newer materials keep coming our way. And if you want, unless you are a lifelong learner, surviving in this complex, ever changing world is going to be next to impossible. uh, I think that is essentially what we are talking about, lifelong learner. So, one thing is very clear: lifelong learning is a very essential attribute all professionals should have. In fact, now for all human beings. What does this mean? What does lifelong learning mean? It's an ability to learn, unlearn, and newly learn or learn newer things. This is a very interesting cycle because the brain has a limited capacity, and it could confuse something with something which was learned earlier, because the way we do things is completely changing. Practically, uh, I mean, for us, it changed every decade, but for you, it could change every 6 months. And that's something which, if you look at it, is frightening. But if you consider your ability, if you build an ability around, this learning, I think you can do wonders. And whole lot of examples of learning are centered around lifelong learners. Whole success, lot of successes are centered around lifelong learners. And lifelong learning does not just apply to individuals but also to institutions, that they need to continuously reinvent themselves. For example, Mastering Up is an organization which was unthinkable, say even a decade ago, but today it's absolutely essential part of our academic environment, so to say. So, with these preliminary thinking, let's look at uh, what learning is all about. I just thought this slide because I'm sure all of you have seen, and it's been circulated umpteen number of times through WhatsApp and other social media. But there is a certain element of truth, that we have all kinds of people with different capabilities, and our education system is trying to make sure that they all look alike. This concept of uniform education was all right when there was a uniform employment, particularly for Indian students, that we were all to become government servants or so-called clerks, which were required at that point of time. But today, those are not the kinds of employment opportunities which anybody looks forward to or aspires. There will be a few of us who would end up doing that, I'm sure. But even there, you really need to be imaginative, entrepreneurial, and enterprising, so to say. And things even in those areas are changing continuously, and there is a process of learning, unlearning, and relearning. The way our government, even our government systems are changing, I think they're becoming tech savvy, and this technology updation is going to continue, unending process, and that's very important. I have often told my students in the universities which I led, that the degree, what does it indicate? The degree you earn has a date on it. The date on it perhaps is almost an indicator of the date on which your current knowledge has expired. Uh, so, what does the degree indicate? The degree only indicates that you have this ability to learn. I think in times to come, the value of the degree per se, or the degree in itself, is going to change, and it will have different meanings. People are going to look for much more than the degree itself. The degree only ensures that you tried to learn and you're successful, so you know how to learn. But more than that, I think you need to be absolutely clear what you want to achieve. Let me first clarify what I intend to do it in this session. If you are looking for any tips on how to memorize and remember, I know that's not what I'm going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you so many of these things which maybe you are looking for. A step-by-step method for studying, no, that's not what I'm going to tell you. I will tell you why I don't want to tell anybody how to do a step-by-step method for studying. Advice on regular studies: study regularly every day. Wow, that's something which you need to decide for yourself. How to set goals, determine goals, and how to achieve them in life. No, that's not what this session is all about. I'm sure you will find those things by yourselves. How to build a career also is not what I'm going to tell you. Tell you something which you don't know at all. Even that is not something which can happen, because today all information is already available in the domain, public domain, in fact. And there is very little which anybody can tell you. All we can tell you is where to look for and what to look for, and that's precisely what I'm going to do. Let's look at what is active learning. But before we look at what is active learning, let's look at
Yeah,
what
hello,
is not
sir.
active. Yes, sir.
Sir, sorry for the interruption.
Yeah.
Slides are not moving.
Can you? Is it? Has it moved now? I'm on
No,
slide six.
no, no. We were able to see the first slides only now.
Okay. Now
Yeah, yes, fine, fine, sir. Now, yeah, yes.
you can see this now. Okay.
Now it's fifth slide, right, sir?
Now I'm on fifth slide.
So, yeah.
Okay.
No, sir.
Can you see the slide now?
Fifth slide.
Yeah, fifth. I'm on fifth slide only.
Yeah, okay, okay.
Yeah. Okay. Now can you see the slide number six?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Yeah. So let's talk about what is active learning. But before we understand what is active learning, let's also understand what is not active learning. We all attend classes. Yeah, we are all very enthusiastic. We are focused. We are sincere, and we are concentrating on what the teacher is telling. Unfortunately, that's not active learning. That's being active in the class. Yeah, that's not active learning. By active learning, I mean proactive learning rather than just being active while you're listening. Attending all classes, regular studying. No, that's not active learning yet. Burning midnight oil before examination, studying very hard for the examination and succeeding. No, it's still not active learning. Doing all assignments yourself in time, help your friends also, possibly. These are all examples of passive learning, because you are waiting passively for knowledge to be delivered by the teacher, knowledge to flow. You're waiting for the examination, you're waiting for notes to come to you, you're waiting for an understanding of what you should study for the examination. These are all passive learning method examples. What we would like to be doing is active learning. One great example of active learning is Ekalavya. He did not wait for the teacher. Of course, he did go to the teacher and he was spurned away. The teacher said, "You can't come into the class." But that did not stop him from learning. He learned by himself. That's active learning. Is it possible by everybody? I'm sure it is possible for everybody. Let's take this example. Yeah. Learn even before the teacher teaches. Why? Because even after the teacher has taught you, uh, things are not clear. Okay. You're not likely to remember. You're not likely to understand. You're not likely to be able to do things with what was delivered in the class. Yeah. You have to learn it by yourselves anyway. You have to go back, try to study it. Maybe your friend understands it. Yeah. Read material from the text and then understand it. Just remember that you are as intelligent as the next person. Your marks in competitive environment are only a reflection of the hard work you have put in, possibly. And do not underestimate yourself. The fact that you are not understanding something, there are multiple reasons. I hope to throw some light on those reasons. But it's always better to understand yourselves and connect with what is happening around the world. I'm not saying don't stop attending lectures, must go to the lecture, but when you go to the lecture, try to make the most of that lecture rather than wait for passively for the teacher to deliver everything, for the simple reason that there is no way the teacher can deliver everything that's available for you to learn. Uh, there is the, the te- teacher is incapable, that there's not enough time, and the group dynamics are also restrictive, and the fact that you still have to go back and read, and then you will have doubts, then you will go back to the teacher to ask, or you sort it out, or live with those doubts saying, Array, this I don't understand, this is a very difficult subject. And I think that's a myth you need to break. There is no difficult subject. Every material available is in a language which is comprehensible. Your language comprehension has been defined by 8th, ninth, or 10th standard at best. So there should be no worry. And if there is something which is not ununderstandable, you go back, read it, reread it. At least the language comprehension will come. Then you will have some doubts which a teacher can quickly solve. So you will be making the most of teacher's presence in the class. So, why active learning? I think it's important to understand that we need to take charge of our own learning, our own life. That's absolutely important. We have to be responsible for our knowledge. See, we are preparing for an examination at the end of semester, end of the year, whatever is the scheme of things you are dealing with. That is not the examination which we need to be preparing for. The rest of the life is a huge examination, and there is no sure shot formulae for facing that examination. You need to be learning for that examination. There are learning outcomes expected of you. The knowledge outcomes are of course there, but the learning outcomes are even more important. There are skills which you are required to acquire, and if you do not have them, your employability is questioned. I always ask my fellow students, who do you think is the one who is most interested in your success? A lot of students reply, our teachers. I say no. The teacher is doing his job. He has many other things to worry, including his own life and his own success. A lot of students say about our parents, yes, they are interested, but can they be doing anything other than pay your fees or put you in institutions? And in most cases, even that is not possible. So they can be, at best, can be frustrated. The only person who should be and who is interested is you yourself. You have to be selfish. You need to succeed in life. You need to make a good living in life. So you have to take charge of your knowledge. Tomorrow you cannot say that this was not in the syllabus. In the professional world, this was not in the syllabus. I can't design this, I can't do this, I can't understand this. It will be a very sorry this thing. Nobody will forgive you because your teachers could not teach that to you. Nobody will forgive you because that was not part of your curriculum. All these things are under change, and there is a lot of work which the senior professionals are trying to do to ensure that these are changed in time. But there is one person who is not only interested but is capable of taking charge, that is you yourself. So it's very important to take charge of your learning, understand what learning outcomes are immediately expected out of the activity, and make sure that you attain those learning outcomes for yourself. And that's much more than the degree you get, the marks you get, the and I have a feeling you will get them anyway once you become an active learner. This is what I was talking about. A teacher can teach something in the classroom, very little. In fact, this overlap between taught and learned could decrease or increase depending on the effectiveness of the teacher and the interest of the student, both put together. Uh, Whereas it's also understood that a lot of things which have not been taught in the classroom do get learnt by the student, which tell us that it's the student whose learning is important, and the teacher's teaching is only to aid students' learning and not the other way around. I have always been talking to my teachers that let's not be, the sage on the stage. Many of us have great elocutory abilities, so we can stand like I'm doing and continuously speak blah 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 for hours together. But the listener, his ability to grasp, his willingness to grasp, and his mental stamina to grasp are all at question, and that is why this gap remains. It is said that if your students are not learning the way you are teaching them, you don't change the students, you don't harass the students, you don't beat them up or punish them so that they start learning, but rather you change your way of learning to suit the way of learning of the students. And that's what when we advise teachers, we also need to advise students to change your way of learning. What happened in school has happened, gone. It's done and dusted. Leave it aside. I'm sure some of you got a wonderful school environment, and some of you had a different kind of a school environment where you were taught discipline and you were taught to be same as others. But you're not the same as others. You are very different from each other. You have an individualistic this thing. But then professions have certain minimal learning abilities to be acquired, and they have to be acquired in by individuals in their own way and their own speed, at their own speed. I think the new education policy also talks about learning in your own style and at your own speed. Some of the things envisaged, I don't know when they will see the light of the day, is allow students to study the way they like to study at the speed at which they like to study, and examinations will be at will, and not as per schedule or anything. I think that's a very very far away dream for formal institutional learning, but that's essentially what uh, we need to get geared up to. We need to study. If our pace is different from others' pace, we need to give that much more time or less time, and catch up, or do it faster, whichever is appropriate. We need to understand there are levels of learning. One level of learning, we have been used to grades, marks, classes, discussion. The second level of learning tells our ability of the student to perform. That's the level of learning we must attain. And I keep telling my teachers that ability of each one of your student to perform is what your success in learning. The lowest denominator is what is your success of teaching, which has led to what is a very important modification which has come over our teaching, that is learning objectives. The teachers are supposed to focus on learning objectives, yeah, uh, or learning outcomes. That outcome has to be attained, and this outcome is demonstrable, this outcome is measurable. As students, you need to understand that there is an objective for this learning and there is an outcome desired, and you need to work towards attaining that outcome of learning. So, what are these learning objectives? Uh, this is something which I'm sharing with you, uh, just so that you remember. See, when we learn something, what do we mean by we learn something? We learn something. For example, we all learn our tables, multiplication tables. We remember them most of the time, and we think remembering them is I have learned, and we have always understood learning as learning by rote, and that's something which we need to come out of. That's a paradigm which we need to shed, and say that there are different types of learning, these different levels of learning. Bloom was one of the first who gave a classification, and I'm sure these classifications exist in every civilization and have been in existence for ages. There are Indian parallels from ancient civilization world, but then this is something which the modern world recognizes, so I have kept it. We need to understand that the higher level of learning is understand. Understand means be able to explain to somebody else. If you can explain it to somebody else, that means you understand it, not just remember. Apply, use that knowledge, and in new situations, solve problems, for example, or demonstrate, interpret, you know. And the third level is analyze. Use your knowledge to analyze different situations. uh, Beyond that is evaluate, and the last is create. Use that knowledge to create something new or original, even create new knowledge. I think these are levels of learning objectives which we can attain in every a lesson or everything that we are trying to learn. In fact, in ancient Indian, this thing, the teacher classification also was very similar. We had shikshaks, we had upadhyayas, then we had acharyas, and gurus, and they were all supposed to cater to a different level of learning outcomes. Uh, I'm sure these are very much. We need to understand that if I'm in my first year class, I'm learning a subject. What is the learning objective? What is the learning outcome expected? Am I only expected to remember this? If I'm only expected to remember this, then why is the teacher spending time? Because I have to go back and remember this, learn and learn, and I mean learn by rote and remember this, or use it so much that by practice these things automatically stay in my mind. I think these are the things which we need to decide for ourselves, and ensure that we utilize our learning time to the best of our abilities. These are some of the different levels of teachers which I picked up from here and there, and they are very parallel to the Bloom's taxonomy levels, which is very interesting. Now, how do I get into these different levels of learning? I would like to just go through the multiplication tables. One is remember by rote. Understand, that means you can explain x into y is same as y into x. This is a different level of understanding than just remembering. Apply, you go into the market and solve problems using multiplication tables. Analyze different number systems, or even analyze market situations. Different people are giving you different discounts, so you are able to analyze and see which is the better. Evaluate and defend his solutions, and create tables for higher digits is an example of different levels of learning. This is a very simplified this thing, just to tell you that even in a simple thing like multiplication tables, one could see different levels of learning, and I'm sure you'll appreciate that some amongst you was able to do one or more of the things which are listed here. Then this is this. this environment which now is coming, which is based on outcomes, that there are lesson outcomes. That means every class there is an outcome. There are course outcomes. The lesson outcomes together form cater to the course outcome. Every course or every subject you are learning has an expected outcome, and today teachers are required to define those outcomes and share with the students that these are the outcomes which we are trying to attain. And all these outcomes together form a program or a degree course which you are studying, and this program has its own expected outcomes, and you need to attain them so that you become employable, and you are there. For me, education is what remains after you finish school. That means everything that has happened, and what you learned and what you forgot, minus what you forgot, is what your education is. And we have seen that quite often this is what is done in many of our professional institutions, and very little of it remains after the education is over. I think what's important to see is what has remained. I always give, I do have a few minutes. I always give an example of a movie which entire family sees. And what remains after the movie is the male child is probably thinking of the fighting scenes. The female child is thinking about how beautiful the heroine was. The mother is probably thinking about the saris and the jewelry the women wore. Of course, there is a main story of the film, which, if it's interesting, will remain with you. But that's what you're thinking, and probably the father is thinking that in how much it cost for seeing the whole movie. So this is what remains after you have seen the movie. Something similar will remain after you have gone through your studies, and what remains is what is important. Uh, Now, styles of learning and stages of learning is what a lot of people have been researching, and I found this course theory. It's not the best, possibly, but it does give, a variety, and it does explain at least three or four different styles of learning. Cole believes that there are four stages of learning. One is the concrete experience, reflective observation. That means after you have experienced, you reflect on what you experienced, then conceptualize it, and then experiment it to confirm that your conceptualization is correct. Not everybody needs to go through all four stages. He classified four styles of learning, but by permutation combination, you can create many more styles. There are these convergents who are good in conceptualization and directly experimentalization. There are divergers who go for concrete experiences and then reflect on those observations. Assimilators go for abstract conceptualization, and then they go back and do a reflective observation. Accommodators are concrete experiences and active experimentalists. So there are different types of learning, and each one has to have an experience which is suitable to his style and create that experience and capture it. But it's important to understand that at least these are four stages of learning. That means there are different stages of learning for each one of you. You could work this out for yourselves. It's not necessary to really understand what your style of learning is, but it's important to develop a couple of different techniques of learning so that learning does happen, and something which suits you is what your style of learning, what uh, is important. There are a few methods which I'll just touch upon, and I'll give you examples of these methods and how effective they are. The first method is known as the flipped classroom, which is actually something which the teachers have to go for. But I'm telling my fellow students to practice this. We need to change to flip classroom, collaborative learning, mind map tools, problem based learning, project based learning, case studies based learning. We need to start adopting, use these various ways of active learning, and there are no fixed rules of how it's to be done. For example, a flip class is read the material in advance and go in the class prepared, and you have your notes, you have your doubts, you get into a discussion, and that's how uh, your learning gets complete, because you're already in the stage where you have finalized your learning. It's going to settle in and it's going to be rubbed in. There is a revision happening, and it's going to stay with you forever. Basically, the material is all available. Proactively use it, get a head start to the learning process. That's all flip class is all about. What they say is, in a flip class, teacher speaks the least, and it's the students who speak a lot. Teacher only speaks what the students ask. I always keep giving examples from our ancient Indian history, if you want to call it. Bhagavad Gita was not delivered by Krishna to Arjuna. It was a flipped classroom. Arjuna asked the questions, and Krishna only answered the questions asked by Arjuna. If you read Bhagavad Gita, it becomes clear that there are questions and there are answers. He did not offer any answer. He did not go with a syllabus while describing. Arjuna had questions because he had done a lifetime of learning, and suddenly he was having lots of doubts, and those doubts had to be clarified. Uh, I want you to be the Arjuna with doubts, so that the Krishna in your class can solve them, and make sure your learning is effective. This, I believe, is a win-win for both teachers and students. Whereas in a when I say flipped classroom, the students talk and teachers only listen and correct only if there is something. The second is collaborative learning. See, it's not always possible for you to learn everything by reading by yourself. Then you share that learning process. Uh, Collaborate with your friends. Together you learn and understand, and then if something which you don't understand, even together as a group, I'm sure the teacher is there to help you. This is what is the concept of collaborative learning. That means you are part of a society and you use the entire society in your learning process. There are limitations. It also collaborative learning also feels like six blind men understanding an elephant by touch and feel. But then eventually you know that the fellow who was feeling the tail gives you idea that there is a tail which is rope like. The fellow who was holding the trunk gives you an idea that there is a trunk, and the pillar like feet, and fans ears which are fan like. So this is all of you together. Your overall learning is much greater, and possibly a teacher who is not blind can really help you understand the whole elephant after you have individually brought this stuff. There is a very interesting concept which I want to uh, share with you, is mind maps. I think mind maps is a formalized technique. You can read about mind maps, but then mind maps are something which are created by each individual, and each individual has his own way of creating those mind maps, and use those mind maps as an active learning tool, that is in absence of a teacher, before the teacher has delivered. It can come in handy even while the teacher is delivering, but it's better to use it in advance rather than. This is an example of a mind map which I have shared with you. Mind maps are important. It's does look like doodling, and all of us have this habit of doodling in the classroom just to keep ourselves awake sometimes, or we are getting bored. But then this is to get you involved in the whole process using something which you always find entertaining. The mind map you have created about a concept should be able you should be able to revisit that mind map and solve a problem, or understand a new situation. So you really have to create a mind map which will tell you, which you can traverse through again, later, to help you improve your level of learning. I think that's what is important about mind maps. If you are comfortable with mind maps, creating mind maps, uh, go ahead and do that. Uh, what is more important is problem based learning. Pick up a problem and start learning. This is particularly of interest in technical education, but let me assure you, even in social sciences, there could be a problem which you may pick up. Start with the problem, don't learn the basics, start with the problem. Once you start with the problem, every you will understand that I really need to understand the basics which involved in it, and then you go into learning the basics with a more curious and more interested mind. I think that's what the problem based learning does for you. See, if it's a problem, it's a problem if you can solve it in a few minutes to one class. It's a bigger problem. It's a complex problem if it needs three or four classes to solve it, or it needs much more time, and you need to consult a few of your friends, and it gives you the focus. It helps you understand that I really need to learn this so that I can solve this problem. So it gives you a purpose why you're learning some things. And these small motivational things will actually tell you that you need to learn. And then when you learn it and you have already solved the problem, they give you that satisfaction that, look, I have attained this learning ability which I was supposed to attain. And that's a really win-win situation for the student. From the student's point of view, problem-based learning is very, very interesting. And if the problem becomes larger and larger, that you pick up a problem which takes about a month to solve, and everything you need to learn in it is few chapters of, not just one book, but possibly more than one source. I think that becomes a project. It could be a mini project, micro project, mini project, or a huge project. Project based learning is essentially a larger scheme of things, greater than the problem based learning, but the principles are the same. It's supposed to give you an indication at what all you need to learn so that this project can be completed. I have given this Colin University full stop. Do a Google search on what Colin University is. Okay. Colin University is an example where they don't prescribe a curriculum for the students. They only give a huge project. The project could be to say prepare a mechanized dolphin which can swim, which can identify objects around it, which could even say dismantle weaponry. It can recognize between friend and enemy, a whole lot of, and save in case of save human beings in case of a disaster. uh, any number of these requirements could be given, and in the process the student recognizes that this has to be a mechanical object. So I need to understand about materials, I need to understand how these things work, I need to understand. So he will slowly pick up the courses which are needed, so that he can attempt to solve the problem. And then by the time he has completed the project, he has learned everything that is required, and he has also built a very great learning ability. I think that's something which nobody can take away from him. I would say if you are able to build a car on your own, or over a couple of years, and everything that is required to build a car, you have learned it, including the materials, the mechanical, this thing, the machining, the you know the way the engines work, and so on and so forth. uh, would that not be a greater mechanical engineering degree than a degree which is based on reading textbooks and doing it on paper? I think that's a thought with which I would like to leave you in terms of active learning and how and why active learning is important, because that's something, that's a learning, that's an experience which stays with you even after education is over, even after the you have gone out of a university. uh, Past is case studies wherever they are available. Read these case studies. Best example of case studies is the Panchtantra stories, the Vikram Betal stories you have learned. These were case studies created to learn morals, strategy, understand how the world works. And there are case studies today available on every aspect of our learning. A fewer of them in technical studies, but then in the liberal arts, there are umpteen number of case studies available from which one can learn. How does active learning help your overall learning? In fact, active learning should be the overall learning. You have had this experience which stays with you. You are ahead of the teacher in that sense. You can take charge of your own learning, which is important. You can learn at your own pace and use your own style of learning. And frankly speaking, if you are in active learning mode, I'm sure the teacher will realize he need not be engaging so many lectures. You will have so much more free time. Imagine sitting in a class for 6 hours, with possibly a couple of lunch breaks in between. By the time you have gone through one or two lectures, your mind is satiated. Your learning ability goes on decreasing with as the day progresses. Let's avoid the drudgery of sitting in a class passively waiting for the teacher to teach. And if a teacher is in the sixth class or fifth class, and if your learning ability by then has is tired, uh, I don't think it really is a great way of learning. Reduce those teachers, help teachers save that. Let the teachers also study much more, because they need to then tell you something more than what's there in the book, but the insights which only a teacher can help. I think, uh, and it helps you uh, muster the uh, satisfaction of learning yourself, your own ability, which has been built over the years, and also the confidence that you can do it. If you did it once, you can do it again and again and again. I think that's very important aspect which I would like to leave you with some of these thoughts. Do not memorize and reproduce in the examination. Attain learning outcomes. That's absolutely important. Learn how to learn. I think you focus on learning how to learn. If you're not learning one way, try to change your learning style. Try to use another way of learning. Maybe watch videos if you are having a difficulty in reading it. Maybe you go to a friend and discuss. That's collaborative. you know these are the things which you need to keep changing and finding your own comfort level. And different topics have a different way of learning which is most suited to you, and you need to understand that dynamics. Build on skills, understand what you need and why you need, and plan how you will get it. I'm not going to tell you how to do that. Uh, I only told you some of the things which are considered active learning. Uh, I will leave with one last thought. Become an Ekalavya, and in modern days, get Dronacharya's blessings too. I would like to stop here by saying thank you for patient listening. Feel free to ask or post questions. I'll stop sharing the slides now unless there's a question
Yeah,
relating
yes.
to one of the slides.
Yeah, okay. So thank you for the submission session, sir.
Yeah,
So I have some questions here.
please.
How can metacognition enhance active learning and lifelong learning practices?
Could you repeat that?
How can metacognition enhance active learning and lifelong learning practices?
Metacognition is a state which is attained through active learning. Metacognition is not a technique or a metacognition is a state of your uh, uh, enlightenment. I would say metacognition is not a methodology. So how can metacognition is something which happens, yeah, and it's something which your brain has been trained to do. So active learning is a method of training your brains. So metacognition will happen automatically. That's what I would like to say. Metacognition is not a methodology. Metacognition is an effect of learning different techniques, the way of understanding. So what happens is the way your intelligence works. Metacognition is a concept used to describe how your intelligence works, because the faster you are able to reach conclusions compared to others is your level of metacognition. I hope I have
Okay.
I hope I have done some justice to that question.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, sir. And what role does self-directed learning play in becoming a lifelong learner, and how can individuals cultivate this skill?
It's only by practice. It's only by practice, and it also depends on your environment. How much your teachers encourage you to do self learning. We teachers have all been accused of shunning those who learn in advance, those who ask questions in the classrooms. See, when you are a new teacher in your first class, your goal is to make sure the class is quiet, and you have full control. We call something as class control. The class control is to keep everybody quiet so that you can what you have prepared you can deliver. I think the whole fundamentals are wrong in that. You are not expected to deliver anything. Uh, you allow the students to learn. Okay, I understand that all the students are not interested in learning, but that's why I have given you this session where you have to get you interested in learning. I mean, it's fun to create some noise in the class. See, when you are a senior teacher, if when you ask a question, you expect students to respond. Okay, and if the students are not responding, if they're not talking, then you get insecure. You feel uneasy, and by the time you reach my age, you want students to ask the questions, and so that you can reply to them. You don't want to do that whole rigmarole of doing blah 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 completely, because you realize it's a waste of students' time, and that's where I come from. I think it's important that the younger teachers are also told about this. They understand, and the students have to change also. See, students often come and sit in the class, open their notebook, an empty page, and they say, "Okay, you teach. I'm a good student. I will learn it." No, if you're a good student, you learn it, come to the class, ask the teacher your doubts, or share with what you have learned, share with your colleagues, have a discussion in the class that will assure you that what you have learned is in the right direction, and you have not built a false picture of what you have read. Your comprehension is correct. Your brain is working all right, and you're in the right direction, and continue to do this. I think this is something which is totally missing, because we call the way of teaching as pedagogy. Unfortunately, in higher education, each one of our student is 18 years or above. They don't go to a pediatrician. So why should we be teaching them using pedagogy? The learning has to happen through andragogy, that neither our students nor our teachers are willing to recognize. Andragogy is where individual uses his existing knowledge and new knowledge he acquires and fits it into his existing knowledge based on the kind of existing knowledge he has, which means everybody's way of understanding and everybody's level of understanding is going to be very different from each other. As teachers, we need to recognize that. As students, we need to recognize that. And as students, we need to recognize that there is some common minimum understanding I need to generate so that I am competitive and I can do some of these. The outcomes are very important. It does not matter how you understand it, what picture you have in your mind of the phenomenon, as long as you're able to use that picture, apply it, solve the real life situation, and be a professional, become useful to the society. That's what I call a definition of a professional. Professional is useful to the society. So society looks after him. If you're a doctor, you are useful to the society. You help people who are having difficulties in living by giving them, by advising them with medicines, surgery, whatever. And the society is willing to pay your price. They make sure you can look after, you earn a living, and are able to live as a important. The same thing is true about every professional: doctor, nurse, engineer, lawyer. You name a professional, they are all there because they are useful to society. If you are not useful to society, then you can't be successful. So all I'm trying to say is, find your own way of learning things, your own level of learning, which you can use and actually solve. Uh, well, I have this very interesting study that some of my students who are not good in classroom are much better in professional life, because they, not that they learnt but we didn't give them, but they eventually realize that they should have learned, and finally on the job they learned, and and then they succeeded. So become ready for success well in advance, because you only are benefited by what you learn. I always tell my teachers, who is working hard, you or your students? If the teacher is working hard, the teacher is benefited, he becomes wiser, he knows so much. But that does not guarantee his students will. Of course, some will benefit, some will benefit those who are seeking that benefit, which means the student has to work hard, and the hard work by the student is beneficial to the student. And when I say hard work, it does not mean that you work for study for 8 hours. No, that's not what hard work is. Hard work is, I think we should now start calling hard work smart work. Focused. What I want to learn, what I have to learn, and I can learn at this pace, so I must give it this much of a time. There are no shortcuts for some of these things. There are shortcuts for many of these things. Uh, we need to recognize where the shortcuts are important and where um, a practiced skill development is very, very important. That's the purpose of this session. I hope I have touched upon some of those. uh, I have enjoyed it. I would love to get a feedback on what I missed out, so that next time somebody asks me to give this session, I will be able to make improvements.
Okay. Thank you, sir. And I have next question.
Please.
In the context of active learning, how can technology and digital tools be effectively utilized to enhance the learning experience?
Yes, I mean that's they're all available. See, my premise is that, see, all these tools are available. Don't wait for the teacher to pick up those tools and deliver it to you. You know, today all information is available. There is no information which is not available on the internet. Okay, so for everything there is a video, YouTube video available. For every concept there is some material or the other available. And many of these things you can do it yourself. It's easy to do it yourself. You want to study pendulums, you can build a pendulum yourself. Go ahead and do it. I mean, use your own tennis ball or whatever ball you have at house, or you can type any bloody object with a weight to a string, and you can do experimentation yourself. Or there are videos where these experiments have been done, which will give you near to life experiences. And these are even, I mean, AR VR technologies will come in, will help you understand it to a greater depth. But then all these have to be absorbed, and most important part is, have you attained that learning outcome? You know, you see a video like you an entertainment piece, and then forget about it. It's not going to get you anywhere. You really need to get it, put it in your mind map, or whatever way you study, and it should stay with you. I think that's very, very important. That's what I'm saying is, be active learner. You don't need to wait for the teacher to teach you. Yeah. Digital technologies are a great boon, and today's world, all these things are becoming accessible even if you're in a village. Yeah. Your mobile set can give access to any technology that's available, any information that's available in this world, including YouTube videos. And of course, the internet is a mind-boggling flood of information. That's precisely why our students are confused, because they don't know which information to pick. That's why I said, go with a purpose, go with a problem. Pick up a problem, then search around that problem and see the out of the information you are getting, which is relevant to that problem. And see, this is what is learning all about. Find your own comfortable way of learning. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, sir. What are the some effective strategies for overcoming barriers and challenges to active learning and lifelong learning, such as time constraints and information overload?
Yeah, information overload is always there. So that's why you need to, and you need to recognize that you can't learn it all, and you don't need to learn it all. Okay, you can't learn it all, and you don't need to learn it all. uh, Quite often you need to know where that information is. Okay. And that's where we fail. We have design courses where we have closed book examinations. Real life is not about closed book examinations. You can't mug up a design handbook. It's important to know that it's there in the handbook. You should know where to look for, how to search, and once you find it, how to use it. I think that's the knowledge that is essential. So don't get boggled by the whole design handbook, which is 5 to 10 kgs in weight. No, don't have to worry about it. It's important to know that it's all there, and right now I need to understand that what is there and how I'm going to use it. I think that's a decision which you will have to do for yourself. That's why I said, go with learning outcomes. Learning outcomes are not content outcomes. We have all been used with content learning. We know these chapters have to be learned. No, chapters are not important. The learning outcome is important. Some of the chapters may not be contributing much. Leave them out. Just because there is a chapter, poor teacher is forced to teach that chapter. Quite often, teachers teach because they know they learned somewhere and they think, okay, this I know, so I can take 3 or 4 lectures. I have masala for 3 or 4 lectures. No, no, that's not how it should happen. That's why I keep advising teachers also to recognize, is it contributing to the outcome? If it's not contributing to outcome, make a mention of it. Tell the students that it's there. Maybe someday later you might want that information. But right now, for the learning outcome, there is a limited capacity of both learning, remembering, and using. And see, tomorrow's world is not going for full-time employment. You don't join an organization and then you grow in that organization. The gig kind of environment has already started coming. Organizations are worried because they can't find people, but they will find these project groups which will do their job. And these project groups are very, fluid mosaic structure is what they call them. There are 6 7 people who are not connected with each other, but they will all come together because they have the relevant knowledge set and skills for this job. They'll contribute, make money out of it, and then the gig disintegrates. Or if you have a new project, a new gig will automatically be formed. And this is all going to happen. And this is what is going to change in the society. And this is going to happen even in learning environment. Physical institutions teaching with the kind of GER we are looking at is going to be impossible, next to impossible. A lot of our technologists or professionals are going to come from non-informal systems of informal systems of non-formal systems of learning, and they will have a different way of certification of learning outcomes having been attained in terms of both knowledge and skills. And they are used already, it's being used. So many people do online courses and companies recognize their skill attainment, and that's going to happen. What I'm saying is, get into that mode. You have got a formal education, wonderful, but even the formal education should be learnt in that mode. And make it enjoyable. Once you know why you're doing it, I think it becomes enjoyable. It becomes drudgery because you don't even know why you're doing it. And most of the time you have a dream which is very different from your parents' dreams. It's all going to be, it's part of life. This is you have to learn to live with it. But once you know why you're doing it, what level you need to attain, I think it becomes easy to do it.
Yeah,
Next
okay,
question,
thank you,
please.
sir. How can collaborative learning and social interaction contribute to active learning and foster lifelong learning habits?
See, collaborative learning, other than the learning itself, which happens, does a lot of other things. It helps you improve your interactive skills, life skills change. You learn to interact with other groups, other human beings, and your team dynamics are a wonderful teachers. You learn much more than what you are supposed to learn in the learning objectives in a collaborative working, and the unwritten objectives which you attain are many more than the written down objectives. So collaborative learning, you become team, your leadership qualities get expressed. You start recognizing that you can be a leader, or you need not be a leader. You're a good team player. These are all things which happen naturally in a collaborative learning environment. I think that's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, okay, okay. Thank you, sir. How can individuals develop a growth mindset and embrace a positive attitude towards continuous learning throughout their lives?
That's a self motivational thing. Today I can only motivate you to learn, and if you find that motivation to learn, I understand that I have given you a simple motivation to learn, that is, look at the learning attainments, learning objectives, and learning outcomes. And 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 it's a very small step. It requires little amount of motivation, which understanding will give you. Attain that and you are successful. Greater motivation, you really need to have a positive thinking mindset, and remember that nothing is lost. The worst that can happen is, like that Rajesh Khanna movie where he says, "Abhi to main mara nahi, और मर गया तो मैं ही नहीं, तो why should I worry? I'm alive, so why should I worry? And if I die, then I'm no longer there. Why should I be worried about when I'm no longer there?" So that's a very positive way of looking at life. Know that I'm alive. Let me do the thing. I'm part of this society. I need to do something for uh, this society which I'm part of.
Oh,
I think
thank you,
it's
sir.
you need to go into motivating yourself. Though that's a different ball game out there.
Yeah, sure, sir. So, what are the some evidence-based practices and research findings that support the effectiveness of active learning and in educational settings?
I think this calls for the institutional and teachers need to get trained in that. Teachers' mindset also need to change. What is important is if only teachers' mindsets change and the students' mindset does not change, it's not going to be successful. So I understand that the stakeholders in this are the institutional management, the teachers, the students, the surrounding, the parents, and these are all their mindsets have to change. The parents cannot tomorrow come and complain that no, teacher is not teaching anything in the class. My boy only is studying everything. Why should I pay the teacher? No, that's not how it happens. The teacher is there to even certify that your boy has learned what he's doing is correct, and I'm sure he does that. And for that, that's part of the professional activity which is happening, and that professional activity the society must support. I think this recognition has to happen, and the managements also should recognize that the teacher is taking only fewer lectures. No, but he's studying. He's interacting with students on different. For example, all this active learning can happen offline on an LMS, and the teacher from time to time goes there and solves difficulties. He's a full-time teacher in that case. Then he need not you need not count his how many hours of lectures he has taken. He's full-time available, and he could be doing it after his dinner at night for an hour, or maybe he's an early riser, and he does it at 4 a.m. Same thing, student can also be learning at different times, because this is an active learning process. Student is comfortable in burning midnight oil, but you force him to sit in a class at early in the morning at 8 a.m. Does not match. You need to change that. If half your students are not in the environment comfortable which you have created, I think you'll have to change that environment. That's a mindset change which we need to have across.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, sir. How can active learning principles be applied to professional development and continuous learning in the workplace?
What happens is, even in professional development, it's important for somebody to define the outcomes expected. you know Organizations have to look into this is an organizational behavior this thing. The supervisory cadre has to define, look, I want you to improve your learning, I want this outcome to be attained. Okay. And if they help define an outcome, maybe on their own or in discussion with the juniors, once those outcomes are defined, active learning really becomes active. Yeah, otherwise, like it happens in government organizations, you have to pass those examinations, then you'll get a promotion. uh, then people will, by hook or crook, pass those examinations. And passing those examinations does not really mean he's competent for that job. As simple as that.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, sir. What are the ethical considerations and challenges associated with lifelong learning, such as maintaining the currency of knowledge and addressing bias or misinformation?
I think, see, the only ethical is especially I would not say active learning per se, but the so-called non-formal environments, the ethicality is of two kinds. One is the material provider. He needs to ensure that it's current. And secondly, the learner, if he finds shortcuts to fool the system and and get certifications, I think that is unethical, and it does not really lead to anything. It has short-term gains but long-term losses. It's like saying you falsely get a certification, but if you don't have those knowledge and skill sets with you, when you take up a job and you don't deliver, the job is not going to help you. I don't think you'll be able to keep that job. As simple as that.
Yeah, okay, thank you, sir.
So
And
it's a
how
self-correcting environment. There will be those ethical issues, and there are other ethical issues where knowledge is protected, copyright protected, and that's something which I think the society has to work around. Which knowledge needs to really remain copyright protected, and if somebody is exploiting that knowledge for commercial purposes, uh, is he ensuring that the copyright is taken care of, or somebody is paid, and this is what becomes the other ethical part. The last ethical part is, somebody sitting in his house learns how to create a bomb, creates one, and uh, starts getting into terrorist activities. That's also a danger to the society, and that calls for building character in our youngsters. See, the purpose of education is not just employment. Purpose of education is to make a good citizen, and then a good citizen will become a very useful professional for the society.
Yeah, okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
How can active learning and lifelong learning contribute to personal fulfillment, well-being, and adaptability in an ever-evolving world?
See, if active learning is just a terminology, okay? It teaches you to learn it yourself, and you become a lifelong learner. And if you're a lifelong learner, I'm sure you start recognizing obstacles. You start recognizing where you really need to learn something more, and you have the ability. You have built the ability, and you use that ability to succeed. So they become key to success automatically. They become key to success automatically. See, there is a saying that you have not failed when you fail. You have failed when you decide to remain failed. You decide to get up and succeed again. You're not failed. I think that's what people need to recognize. You understand. Okay, this experiment failed, or this one was it did not succeed. Now, to succeed, what do I need to learn? Go learn it. You will succeed. Yeah, try and try again. As long as you're trying, you're successful. Because they say success is not a destination. Success is a journey. As long as you're in the journey, you should be happy. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, sir. So that
How
thank you
many
for
more
the answer.
questions?
No, sir.
Are we
I
done?
think, yeah, yes, questions are over here. So the answers
Thank
are
you.
very
Thank you very much.
useful. So the answers are very useful. I hope the answers and that the participant can understand about that. So finally, sir. So ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Mastering Up, I would like to extend our heartfelt thanks to our esteemed guest speaker, Dr. Shrihari, for gracing us with his presence and sharing his invaluable insights on practice active learning and becoming a lifelong learner. Dr. Srihari, your extensive knowledge and expertise in the field of engineering education and professional organizations have truly enriched our understanding of active learning and lifelong learning. Your passion for continuous growth and dedication to empowering minds have been truly inspiring. Your presence here today has not only enlightened us, but has also reaffirmed our belief in the power of continuous learning and personal development. Your dedication to empowering individuals and your commitment to sharing knowledge have left an indelible mark in our minds. As we live here today, let us carry the torch of active learning and lifelong learning with us. May we continue to embrace knowledge, nurture curiosity, and strive for personal and professional growth. Let us be inspired by Dr. Srihari's example and become lifelong learners who make a positive impact in the world. So, thank you once again, Dr. Srihari, for being an incredible source of knowledge, inspiration, and guidance. We wish you continued success in all your endeavors. So, thank you everyone for being a part of this memorable session. So, thank you, sir. Thank you so much for this amazing session.
Thank you. Thank you very much.